Papoose was a good man from what I seen. I wish I had a good man like Papoose. Remy Ma now want Papoose back, and he done moved in with his new girlfriend. Now she gotta play the hand that she picked. That man waited for her like she...
For Remy Ma, it was the start of a storm that would shape her to her very core, even if it seemed like just another day. Remy was a formidable force in the rap industry, strong, self-reliant, and unstoppable. She had worked hard to gain her position, but on this specific day, none of it was true. He waited for her as though she were imprisoned in a place from which she was unable to escape. In the shadows, something was simmering, waiting to explode, yet the streets of New York were their normal chaotic selves, with horns honking and people rushing through life. That would be enough to shield her from the fallout from a single rash choice. She had just started a new relationship that initially appeared like a dream. Vanessa, her girlfriend, was confident, attractive, and vibrant. Everything Remy had been searching for. They were inseparable at first, riding high on love and passion, but as is sometimes the case, the charm eventually wore off. Small disagreements grew louder until they became full-fledged disputes. Struggling to strike a balance between affection and control, Remy was unable to manage the situation. Although she wasn't the kind to remain silent, Vanessa maintained the tension between them by pushing back when she felt compelled to. A simple mistake or maybe too many beers led to the altercation that changed everything. In a time she could not remember, she was betrayed by the same hands that had handled microphones to fire crowds and compose words that inspired. In a moment of fury, Remy's hands reached Vanessa's throat, leaving a mark that would be impossible for either of them to ignore. Another dispute, but this time it struck closer to home for Remy, bringing back old scars she had believed were healed along with tension and jealousy. Things took a bad turn before any of them could stop it, and her rage made her judgment hazy. Tonight, her painstakingly constructed armor burst open, exposing the raw, unbridled rage that had been simmering inside of her for years. She had always taken pride in keeping things under control, being the strong one, and being able to handle life's challenges with poise and accuracy. Remy violently pushed Vanessa against the wall, enclosing her in a cramped space that seemed to be closing in on her. Remy stood with her hands still outstretched and her chest rising and falling with the force of her breath as the sound of Vanessa's body slamming into the drywall seemed to slow down for a second time. However, the storm that had been brewing for so long, the fury, rage, and frustration, was all that mattered at that moment. With her eyes wide with fear and her breath coming in sharp gasps, Vanessa strained to stay upright, her hands clutching the wall. In an instant, Remy's steely, unblinking gaze appeared to be looking through Vanessa instead of at her, and her eyes briefly flashed with surprise. She didn't comprehend or know what Remy was getting at, but the words felt like a blow, and all she knew was that she had never seen her like this before, never seen her so utterly enraged, so different from the person she believed to be her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she attempted to grasp the situation, get in touch with Remy, and penetrate the wall of rage that appeared to. Although it was their first altercation, Remy had never lost control to this extent before. There was a heavy, dangerous energy that seemed to envelop them both, and Vanessa could see and feel it in the air. It was oppressive. "This is not what you're prepared for." Remy spat, her voice as cold as ice. It was not a warning, not a cry for comprehension. It was raw, unadulterated rage, and she was no longer thinking, no longer trying to make sense of what was happening. Vanessa was the unlucky victim of that storm, and she was simply responding to the situation, and her emotions were running wild rather than trying to think out how to save it. People needed to know what was real because sometimes Remy would continue talking while her voice grew harsher and more threatening. When Vanessa realized how deadly this was and how powerless she was confined, the dread took over, and her body began to quiver uncontrollably. Her veins throbbed with desperation as she struggled to. She tried to free herself from Remy's unrelenting grip, but it didn't work since Remy was too strong. Vanessa could only struggle, her movements growing more frenzied as the terrible weight of the situation crushed her spirit until finally she let out a scream. However, it was more than simply a cry. It was a devastating sound that ripped through the atmosphere, the sound of someone who had never thought that their world would collapse or that they would end up in this situation. Remy's breath seized in her throat as Vanessa's scream cut through her like a dagger, tightening her chest. It was the sound of an agonized person, someone who was afraid for their life, and Remy's rage suddenly disappeared, and she became acutely aware of the situation. As the seriousness of the situation sunk in, she became aware that she had crossed a boundary that was irrevocable, and her mind began to swirl. And she could already see the results of the consequences unfolding before her eyes. Vanessa let out a gasp, stumbled back, and gripped her throat. She was struggling to keep her balance, and her hands were shaking. "Remy, you can't hurt me," she said in a barely audible murmur. The words froze Remy, as if they were a physical blow. Her judgment had been impaired by the age haze, yet they reverberated in her consciousness. The fact that she had hurt someone she cared about was shocking to her. Remy was ashamed and guilty, and her heart was thumping in her chest. Despite her wanting to make amends and offer an explanation, the damage had already been done, and there was no time for that. Despite her weak hands, Vanessa was able to pick up her phone from the table and telephone 911 while still shaking. With a frightened and panicked tone, she blurted out, "Please send help. I need help." Within minutes, sirens began to blare, and the cries of the officers arrived, and Remy stood motionless, the blazing lights piercing the night like a glaring hurricane. The cops' presence acted as a reminder of the gravity of the situation, and she was immediately taken into custody, placed in handcuffs, and allowed to leave the residence a few days later. The handcuffs' icy metal pressed on her wrists, serving as a continual reminder of the prison she had created for herself. Her strength and control had always been her pride, but now that she had lost everything, Vanessa stood in the doorway, trembling with terror and horror as she saw Remy being dragged away. She felt like screaming and shouting at Remy for what she had done, but she was unable to do so. There was nothing she could do but stand there with a sense of nothingness. The situation's gravity hit when the police car disappeared into the darkness. A debate that started out as such had evolved into something much worse, and there was no going back. Nothing would ever be the same between Remy and Vanessa. Even if Vanessa wanted to shout, cry, or chase after Remy, she knew deep down that she couldn't change the facts about what had happened. She trusted Remy, but that love seemed like a faint recollection lost in the darkness that had taken over her life. After rising from the streets to dominate the rap game, Remy, Massachusetts found herself in a horrible position that shocked the entire world. Despite Remy's attorney's best efforts to defend her, the harm was irrefutable. An instant shattered the anxiety that would haunt Vanessa long after Remy had disappeared. In the weeks after their account, I poured into the courtroom where I was visible to all. Although the defense played it down, describing it as a regrettable incident in which SP lost control during an argument between lovers, the evidence was incriminating. Vanessa's injuries were indisputable physical evidence of the abuse she had experienced. A terrifying account of what had happened behind closed doors was provided by witnesses who heard the screaming during their testimony. The saddest part was that Remy's enterprise was the subject of a painful story that was eclipsed by a single outburst of anger. When it came to the details, the media had a field day, with headlines that shifted from one outrageous charge to another, each one more lurid than the last. There was a flurry of thoughts on social media, with some supporting Remy and saying that her violent background was only a symptom of trauma, while others denounced her behavior and insisted that her notoriety would not reverse it. Nobody had expected Massachusetts to make her own confession, but it was the moment that finally sealed her doom. Perhaps forgiveness could absolve her of her crimes, but in the end, the harm had already been done, and the repercussions were inevitable. It was clear from the judge's decision that Remy, Massachusetts would have to pay a high price for her crimes. She was formerly untouchable, the queen of the rap industry, but now she was behind bars, where her former stardom, fortune, and influence meant nothing. The sentence felt like a life-altering one. Red carpets weren't present. She had always been a legend because of her strength, fierce exterior, and tenacity, but her persona had no place in the little space of a prison cell. The confident, witty, and courageous qualities that had made her unbeatable in the rap industry were all lost in the cramped prison cell. Walls that encircled her, she couldn't outsmart the system. She couldn't charm her way out of this. She had to face herself, perhaps for the first time in her life. The anger that had been brewing beneath the surface for so long now bubbled over the pain, regrets, and mistakes. They all rushed in, filling the space that had previously only been occupied by a hardened determination. She was no longer the proud woman who used to rule the charts and walk with the swagger. Instead, she was just another in a state struggling to. She had to face her worst self, the sorrow that gnawed at her from within, the terror that had forced her to stifle her own regrets in the heat of the moment, and the rage that had led her to hurt the woman she professed to love. It appeared that all of the power, fortune, and celebrity she had previously taken for granted had disappeared, leaving only the truth of her deeds to confront. Began to change. She had hurt someone she loved, and no amount of money, fame, or admirers could make that right. So she could no longer deny the depth of her sentiments. She was forced to confront the consequences of her actions in the quiet of her prison cell. The life she had known, the red carpets, the crowds, the lights, was gone, but more significantly, she had lost the confidence of her friends, her fans, and, most painfully, the drama full force, who were accusing Remy of being unfaithful and defending Papoose. Last year, it was revealed that Remy, Massachusetts, and Papoose had broken up. In case you missed the juicy facts, Kirk was not amenable to the rumors that Remy was having an underground fight with Vanessa, the woman she formerly had a deep affection for. He'd accused Remy of attempting to stir things up even more and labeled her toxic. He commended Pat for maintaining his cool under pressure as Remy supposedly had extramarital affairs with other rappers. What occurs when feelings become unmanageable? Remy's narrative evolved into a powerful lesson about the consequences of avoiding responsibility and the price of unchecked anger. 18 Papoose, who has always been renowned for his calm and collected manner, was caught in an emotional tempest at the same time that he never expected. The court's decision to award Vanessa $30 million in spousal support was more than simply a financial blow. It was a turning point in their lives. It was a pivotal moment in their journey that brought to light all of the struggles they had faced together over the years, and it was only about money. Even though they had been through a lot, the foundation was irreversibly damaged this time. It included personal struggles, legal challenges, and the highs and lows of the music business. But Poe had always supported Remy and believed in her future, strength, and ability. But this was unreal. The paper's number felt substantial, not due to its magnitude as well as its symbolic meaning. Not only was $30 million a court win, but it also represented a new chapter in Remy, Massachusetts' life, a chance to rebuild her profession, her life, and perhaps even her in-depth attendance. But while the win was a momentous occasion for him, it also made him think back on all that they had experienced together. He was so relieved and proud that he woke up crying, not because he was sad or angry. He was constantly aware that Remy was strong enough to conquer all life threw at her, and he was moved to see her achieve this important goal. He was humbled by how far they had come, not simply proud in those tears. He was proud of everything they had been through together, of Remy and of their love. At that moment, it seemed to belong to both of them, even if the victory was hers. Papoose felt the weight of their journey and the power of their bond as he brushed away his tears. It's always so depressing to hear about Pat and Remy, isn't it? We can't really know what someone is going through behind closed doors. Therefore, we can't know what occurred between them, even if I like them both, and it's very sad. They would always remember this moment. It was about everything they had endured to get here, not about the money. It was proof of their bond, love, and strength that got them through the most difficult periods of their life. Though you know what I mean and what made everyone act the way they did, I am aware that I am encore insane and that Minor encore hard. But I also know that you need the perfect person. Life won't be too tough if you're with the proper person. It will be like experiencing normal ups and downs. However, if you're with someone who isn't right, like Shay, you'll cry and regret what you did. Kirk, you deserve that, they would say. But moreover, you know what? I'm glad you adore me, buddy, since you're with a lot of Kirk. Following Remy, Massachusetts' accusation that Papoose had cheated on boxing champion Clarissa Shields, Frost was unable to keep a straight face. Kirk made a leap. I wouldn't do that again, though, if I were in your shoes. Once respected for her strength of character, the woman now found herself doubting every choice she had ever made. Could her actions ever be forgiven if the throne she had created for herself had come to pass? Papoose had a relationship with a rapper by the name of Easy the Block Captain, but it went beyond that. Remy was unable to sleep, eat, or hear Vanessa's cries each time she shut her eyes. Although it wasn't that simple, Remy appeared to be ready to let go of the past when she began seeing someone else. The news that Papoose had allegedly cheated on her with Clarissa Shields was shockingly revealed by Remy a few days earlier. Even though she was criticizing him for some of the same things she had done, she was accused of slandering her. With the battle lines formed and Papoose seemingly stuck in the midst, the drama isn't slowing down. She said that Papo had fallen asleep in a private communication with Clarissa, sharing a screenshot of the exchange. The truth is that while Remy was out having a great time, Papoose was actually participating in a poem's relationship with another rapper. This is why the internet was ablaze. As everyone is aware, Remy Ma, Massachusetts has established a reputation as a strict employer who doesn't hesitate to trample on people's toes. Remy didn't mince words when she said, "You're not the only one." But this time she was arguing with someone more resilient than herself, and Clarissa Shield retaliated with a razor-sharp statement, "How does a woman with two?" So let's listen to his thoughts. As I've mentioned previously, the reality is that we can never truly know what individuals are going through behind closed doors, nor can we completely comprehend why people act in certain ways or what caused events to unfold as they did. We only witness a small part of the difficulties that marriage and relationships face, even though I am aware of their difficulties. You know that I like both of them, so this whole situation is incredibly bad. Having the correct mindset and patience is essential if you want something to last. It's just easier when you're with the right person. You'll experience ups and downs, but it won't feel impossible. The wrong person, however, has the power to shatter you. You will begin to regret getting connected. And if you lack the strength, you may decide not to try again, but you will eventually muster the courage to do so. At this point, it is rather clear that a divorce, perhaps the wisest course of action for Papo and Remy, given the way things turned out. After everything that has happened, it's hard to understand how they could carry on, to be honest. Due to Remy, Massachusetts' continuous adultery, Papoose has expressed his wish for a divorce on several occasions, and their relationship has become increasingly complicated. Reaction: Remy's claims that Papo cheated on boxer Clarissa Shields have been supported by the revelation of confidential communications. The difficulties and intricacies of relationships are brought to light by this public back and forth. There is no resolution to the issue, and it is clear that both sides have their opinions. Another rapper, Frost, expressed his thoughts on the subject, stating that he was not siding with either Papo or Remy Ma. He also jokingly said that because ladies had behaved so badly, he was no longer hearing from them. Despite being the one initiating all of this turmoil, Remy Ma is trying to play the innocent victim, which fans are criticizing. What are your thoughts? Was Papoose fairly treated by Remy, Massachusetts? Or is there more to this tale than what the media is presenting? Some people find it unbearable to see their former partners prosper, and it appears like Remy Ma is one of them. According to Remy, Massachusetts, she's coming across as resentful since she humiliated Papoose in public, let him go on, and is now furious that he's found a new girlfriend. Additionally, they brought up Remy Ma's too public flirtation with the battle rapper. Please share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to see the next tea-related film. To feel better, A woman will try to ruin someone else's reputation because she can't let go. Remy Ma did the same thing, so why is she shaming guys for cheating? A double standard appears to be in place.